my YouTube. There we go.
There is,
hold on a second.
first of all, he has...
Supposed to see my live. So why don't we put on some gloves? These are nitrile gloves, not latex. Some people are allergic to latex. Maybe even like thinking or talking about them, they'll get a reaction. So these are nitrile, so don't worry. People with, hey, who's there? So who is that? It's Trey. Hey, Trey, we're doing volume number 2 of the Monkey God tutorial. So let me just, let's see if this is number 2. Come on, come on. It's not helping. I'm not able to go inside. So it looks like I'm stuck on the the comments. Okay, so what we did earlier in a previous broadcast, let's angle this down. We filled in this little crack here. Let me show you with my trusty. Here there's a seam line crack that we filled in. And there's a number of fissures on this Monkey God statuette. That's closed up. Well, we filled in, but actually now that here you can kind of see some of it is filled in, and then there's some little air holes that are still need to be filling, and we have the proper tool for that. And then over here on the head, you can see there's a hairline. There's a hairline fissure right there, and we're going to address that as well. Plus, on this leg here, inside here, there's the crack. So it's a crack that travels from the head right straight through along here. So we're going to fill that up too. Now, we talked about what we were using. So this is an acrylic gel. It's a very heavy paste, and it's matte colored. And it fills in gaps. It's used in, quality painting, splitting headache. Yeah, it's splitting headache. And so it's a water-based product. And then we also have water-based wood filler that are already pre-colored. And we established that we're going to go 90% this amount and 10% this amount in order to make the right type of color paste. And then we ended up with the gel. We ended up with this little concoction. So it's about 60% gel and 40% wood paste. And then we have this kind of material. Then I needed to have it squeeze out of a syringe, like a really narrow. Yes, it's time for your shot, Mr. Livingston. So how do I get this kind of paste to draw into a syringe like this? Well, we thin it out. But what do you thin it out with? I didn't want to use water, because if you introduce water into the cracks, it's going to kind of cause the wood to swell and then contract. So what I'm going to use instead is alcohol, which thins out this acrylic medium and allows me to draw it in from a syringe and then expunge it out as necessary. Do they make a flexible needle? No, not that I'm aware of. Generally, the needles are not forgiving, meaning they will bend, but they're not, well, flexible, yes, if they're long enough. Look, see, there's a bit of flex there, Yes, the alcohol, well, sometimes, because you see, depending on the chemical composition of the materials, they may react badly. They're called polymers, and they may react badly when you add, instead of it kind of diluting it into a thinner soup, it might actually cause it to create clumps, like clots. And then it won't be of any use to you because it'll have clotted, right? So I'm trying to find the right lighting angle. let's try here. Let's see what happens when we start injecting, because we can go in deep, very deep, and start injecting some of this fluid. Now I can already see it in there. It's starting to come to the surface. I'm going to choose another spot, and I don't want it to leak out, because the point is that if you just put in enough and you watch it, it will get absorbed into the little crevices. And I'll introduce you another word. Are you listening carefully? The word is interstices. And what an interstice is, or means, is the space in between. So by injecting, stabilize that joint. Yes, and in fact, I'm getting some of this stuff that's squeezing out the back end of my syringe here, and that shouldn't really be happening, but it's just, as long as it's coming at the right end, right? Enough to stabilize. Yes, the piece. Well, the nice thing about this particular thinned out alcohol mixture is that if it's left alone, it will start congealing like a gel, like almost like Jello. But right now, because it's like a new mix, you can see on the cloth here, it's kind of like still liquidy. So it's finding out those little crevices, or what's that magic word? Interstices, and filling in those spaces in between. But then it will kind of solidify, and then slowly it will, the alcohol will evaporate, and then it'll be like a, almost, well, not exactly a solid, but, it won't goop out. It won't like slip out if it was like a water-based mixture, because the way that alcohol behaves is it evaporates quite quickly. So it lends itself better to, exposure to air, and you get quicker results. So all I need to do is just leave this be for a minute, like level, so that it won't like leak down the leg, as it were. Solidify. Yes, thank you for the assist there, Trevor. So we're going to go for the splitting headache in a minute, because I think my syringe will actually fit inside that little hairline gap. Here it's very happy to do so. And look, see, it's not leaking out. Look at that. Well, I shouldn't speak too soon, but there's a little bit of a leak there. But I can always turn it back upside down. Here, you can see it's right there. I know my camera is struggling to focus, because you see, depending on what's near and far, it will focus on whatever is dominant. And oh, you see, and it's starting to leak at the top too, but I'm just playing, and trying to step ahead of it. And let me just put this down for half a second and tear myself a little bit of Scott towel. So we're just playing keep your eye on the drip type of thing, because the less amount of over drip that we have, it means the less amount of cleaning we'll do. Oh, by the way, how you manage to, let's say if you have a spillover, okay, then what you can do is, after it's dried and hardened and all the alcohol is evaporated, you can take more alcohol in a cloth like this, with a little kind of flat edge, metal flat edge, and then you can just contour the surface where some of the stuff like leaked where it's not supposed to, and the alcohol, look, it'll wash it right off. Now I have other examples of where I rebuilt some indentations with a thicker amount of gel, and the alcohol and the cloth technique with friction does the same thing. In fact, this kind of technique is also used with people who do restoration of paintings. The nice thing about restoration of paintings and using solvents, and they kind of like, they only work in a square centimeter at a time, is that when a painting has been restored or varnished or touched up, all of those kind of layers are after the fact of the original painting were done. So in fact, you can reverse that by dissolving what's on the surface without going below that. And that's what generally painting conservators do, is they're able to erase previous restorations or previous, applications after the painting was finished in a controlled way, where they can clean off what doesn't belong and then just bring it right down to the original, and then backing away from it. So it's a kind of like the similar technique, is I'm applying like a restoration material in gaps, right? But if it kind of seeps over onto original material, I can come afterwards and then erase it completely, and without damaging any more original material. So let's see how this is doing. It's doing pretty good. You know why? Because the wood is pretty thirsty, okay? Because it hasn't really been, it came from the tropics, right? It came from Borneo. No, not Borneo, Malaysia, which is neighboring Borneo. And that's a pretty humid environment. And what happens when you take exotic woods and tropical woods and African woods from out of their element, and you bring them here to North America, where we just happen to be in the wintertime and we're heating our homes. So anything that has internal humidity inside from the tropics, it gets pulled out at a pretty fast rate here in North America. And this is how wood tends to react. It'll have sometimes violent cracks, depending on how exotic the wood is and how tropical where it came from. So there's a kind of like a settling in period where things from that part of the world come to our part of the world, and they undergo like the seasons, the 4 seasons. So we have a kind of a humid spring and summer, but then when we start heating in the fall, things that inherently absorb humidity will lose it at a fast rate, and it takes a while for them to kind of acclimatize to the new environments that North America presents. If it was back in the tropics, it doesn't crack in the same way because it still has that humidity that they have there. Yeah, well, it's also, it's not just a temperature thing. It's relative humidity. Like when you heat a home, it loses its internal humidity, and in fact, if you don't have a humidifier, that's why people, they have like sinus problems, and they actually have to put a humidifier in their homes in order to make their homes comfortable. Which, by the way, you see, museums are a very high humid environment. Like they're almost like 50% humidity, compared to in a home in the wintertime, you're where you feel comfortable, it's about 35% humidity, and that's for humans. But in a museological collection with very fragile things, they have to crank it up to almost 50% humidity to stabilize very fragile things that come from, strange parts of the world, like mummies and things that were buried. So, it's not really conducive to have a 50% humidity home. Even if you do have some museum pieces in your home, you try to find a happy medium. So, a home that doesn't have a humidifier and that heats in the winter gets all that humidity gets pulled out of the house during the winter months. And if you have something like tropical wood like this, it will crack or do very strange things. So, anyway, so now you have a better understanding of why this is exhibiting this. And in fact, it wasn't as open. The crack wasn't as deep or as evident when I originally bought it, and I put it in my luggage, and then I sort of traveled around Southeast Asia for 2 months. But since I've been home, and I've only been home for about 12 days, I've already noticed that there's been a little bit of gap. So the nice thing about, looks like my gel in the syringe is holding up and it's not leaking. So now we're going to pay a visit to the head fissure, the splitting headache. There we go. And then we're going to try and angle it so that you guys on the camera can see. We're going to administer. Oh no, yes, he's going in with the needle. Oh God, oh God. Okay, let's try here and see. Oh, I can see a little dot. So we're just gonna slowly fill in what we can without getting too much filling. So new cracks, well, they were already there, but they were hairline, and now they've gone like triple hairline. If you understand what I'm saying, is the crack is traveling because the wood is actually losing wood at a faster rate here than if it was still back home in Malaysia. You follow? Because we're no longer, this ain't Kansas anymore, as it were. So I'm happy with that because what's going to happen is even if it's not like completely filled up right now, it's going to get pulled into the furthest recesses, and then it's going to form a solid, and then when it evaporates all of the alcohol, it's going to go as deep as it possibly can, and that means that I can come back with a second and a third until it finally tops up on the very surface, because I shouldn't try to fill it up too quickly because it might leak. So I'll be happy with an initial administration, and then we come back and wait till this congeals. Was that your word? I think you said so. You use that word congeal. So then after it congeals, I can come back and add more and add more and add more. So what I'm assured, yes, it makes several passes, yes. So what I'm assured of is that it'll get pulled into, because of that, there's something called a capillary action. It's when you have something that's wet and then you have fibrous materials that act like sponges, they will pull all the liquid into the furthest little, like tiniest crack that it can find, as deep as it is, and that will get filled in and create a solid. Now, when it becomes a solid, the nice thing about this gel is that it's really elastic. So if this crack decides it wants to pull a little bit wider, the gel is going to resist. It's going to actually pull itself and not cause, and not like the wood won't start cracking more because it'll have that resistance from the gel that has hardened, but still remains a certain amount of elasticity, and it's getting pulled into all of the little crevices on either side. So it's going to have a lot of what they call shear strength. So you're going to need something really violent and really strong in order to pull it apart. But you also have the benefit that because it's elastic, it's not going to say, oh, well, if I can't pull apart here, then I'm going to snap in a new place. And the reason why it won't snap in a new place is because of that elasticity. So it's a really good strategy that, and the other thing is that I can use a solvent to completely dissolve it out of the crack if I decide, or something down the road. Like let's say 100 years from now, somebody inherits this and they decide to restore it a little more with something a little more appropriate, because science, there's always a new something that's better. They can reverse what I've done and then have at it again with whatever they choose to use. But I think that this is the appropriate thing, because it'll probably, like, it might have like like you don't need to fill it in with anything for like 50, 60 years. But if you want to completely erase what I did, it's possible to do without it being too much of a headache. Like, I'm not using cement or something that can't be dissolved. That's the part of restoration that where it's no longer called restoration, it's called conservation. A conservator, whatever a conservator does, it should be able to undo easily. So let's see if yeah, it's holding up pretty good. I might even put in a few more drops, just because I think we can. So let's do it like this. And yes, let's play doctor. Nurse, give me my syringe. Stat. Hold the patient down. Okay, look at it. It's all the way to the edge, and then you observe to see if it gets pulled in deep, 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 deep. And it looks like it's not getting pulled in too fast, which means two things. It's congealing, and it's pretty well filled in as much as it's going to go. But when it completely dries out, I mean the alcohol part of the gel completely evaporates, it will get sucked in as far as it'll go. And it means that I don't have to try to push stuff with a spatula See, if I was using that thicker gel, I would have to go like smoosh, 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 and then I have all of this excess on either side of my statue, where here it's clean, right? There's hardly any residue. So that leaves me less cleanup work after the fact. So this is the better approach than trying to use a thicker gel and smushing it in there. It's not pretty. But let's say if you didn't have alcohol in a syringe to deliver your fill-in material, then that's what you would be limited to doing. You know, that's like you work with what you have. Luckily for me, I got syringes. So if you need a shot, you know where to get one. Better not overfill. Well, yeah, it means that there's more work. And why make more work for yourself when you can keep it clean and be patient? Because in about 2 minutes, I should be able to put him right up, and it won't leak out because of the congealing ability. Like, see how this is pretty liquid, right? That's because of it's mixed with alcohol. But if I was to use this particular gel mixture, it has no alcohol, it's just water-based, and it has the consistency of peanut butter. So this one, it won't drip off. Like, see, it's on my spatula and it's stuck. So what that's good for is little indentations that need filling in. And let's see if we can find a good candidate somewhere. But I don't want to move the statuette. Oh, look at underneath here. You can see underneath his cape. His cape here. You see this kind of like chewed up stuff? So I can contour that little depression with this little spatula and this little peanut butter consistency type of thing. And then any excess I can, as I explained to you earlier, I can smooth off with that alcohol on the cloth type of thing. So so you see the in the crack there, I think I have a flashlight. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Okay, so you can see actually it's close to the surface and it hasn't really sunk in, but it is being pulled in more every minute. So that's a good sign. And then there's a second crack here. Sorry. There's a second crack here that I did not deliver, but I'm going to turn upside down. That's better used for the thicker material. Yes, like here, you see this little chip here, this little notch in the in his cape. I can use what's left here, and I can just go, oh yeah, take that. There you go. So once I let this dry, I can groom it. I can groom it so that anything that's above the indentation will get dissolved away. And anything that's on an edge, I can kind of shape it without physically sanding the piece, because I'm just using alcohol and a soft cotton cloth with a flat metal, spatula that's making a flat surface. And I just kind of dissolve what's on the surface of the wood. And then what's left is just the area that gets filled in with a wood color filler, so that when the end of the process means that I can then just slather a really nice brown colored beeswax over the entire sculpture, and that'll bring out all the grain that's inherent that you can't see because the wood is dry right now. But when you feed it with beeswax, you will see all a beautiful color and you'll see the grain. And the other added benefit of waxing it afterwards is you create a complete skin over the wood, but the wood is still able to breathe. So if it's humid or dry, it will, it will like either absorb humidity if it's in the springtime, or if it's in the winter, it will release, but at a slower rate, because there's a nice slathering of beeswax that creates a layer, like a protective layer on the wood that still allows it to breathe, but at a controlled rate. So that's the strategy in a nutshell. Much like a drywall sanding technique called wet sanding. I guess yes, because you don't want to leave trace marks of like fill-in work and stuff like that. You just want to have and you don't want to. You want your process to work well, and it's not labor intensive where it takes you have to pay a guy half a day to prep your wall, right? You want to be able to go in and out type of thing, because labor costs money, right? So here we have here's another little indentation. So I'm going to use this as an example, because we could leave that, right? And even if it got filled in with wax, it would look interesting, but I can always remove this if I decide that, you know what, I went overboard with the fill-ins, but this is a good example because the lighting is good. So if I just fill this here like this, and I shave it off, basically, I can go clean up any residue that's right on the surface in that technique I explained to you. There we go. And that will take care of that. Now here there's a scratch, and I'm not sure if I want to do anything about it. I'm going to leave the scratch in the garment. But whatever looks like here, there's a little bit of actually that's on the surface, so probably with a waxing you won't even notice it. But oh yeah, he has on his sleeve, he has a little bit of the light. It's nice when you have good lighting because it helps you see things. Do you see this part here? This is not part of the original, and it's quite a chasm deep type of area that we're going to fill in with our fill-in material. And the thing is that even if you don't completely level it off in the first pass, it'll fill in the deep furrows, and then I can come back with a second, just to surface coat it, and it'll be done. So try not to do too much at once. Be happy with small victories is my advice with things like this. So we haven't had any leaking from the head crack. You can kind of see. Now we're going to go for the second one, but we have to hold them upside down like this, and I need to try to get some lighting that's going to show us what we need to see, and I can't hold the light. Yes, make a secondary pass after it dried. Well, yeah, or congealed, because it's not totally dry right now. But yes, you're right. When the solid's dry, then it's best to revisit and then do a second pass, and it makes for a better job. So here it might actually, I don't think I can get my syringe in there, but it's okay. I can get it right near the surface. Oh, I can get it inside. Alrighty. So there we go. That's good. Now, the other thing is that I don't want, what happens is if you just leave your syringe unattended, because the gel could also congeal inside the nozzle, I have a little bit of alcohol in this little sheath. And because I'm not using it, I could put it down and talk for an hour and then forget it. And then I won't be able to squeeze out any more because, I didn't put it with something like alcohol in the end. So this is how you should store your stuff if you still have that much. Because it took me a long while to draw that thick, viscous gel through that fine needle into here. So why make all that hard work go to waste, and then actually you'd have to throw away the syringe because you won't be able to use it, type of thing. So there we are. Now I'm looking at this upside down, and it looks like we can actually sneak in some more from into here. Well, maybe let's try it here. Okay, I can see it. There we go. All right. So you're on the receiving end of this, and I'm calling it a tutorial. You can see how it's pooling there, but it's not getting beyond that. So I'm not going to use a Scott towel to drip it. I'm going to, well, actually, what I can do is I can revert it this way. That way, it'll travel in the other direction, and then it'll stop oozing here. So I can clean that off. So how is it showing up to you? Because, I'm using my iPhone Mini 13 and I'm trying with like different lighting, sources. And of course, I have the benefit of, because I can look at it from different angles because I can move, but the camera is fixed. So I'm trying to give you guys the best view possible so that if somebody who is interested in this type of restoration and they're looking for advice as to how to go about it. Now, look at the head is leaking. So we're going to turn him upside down again and let it congeal in this way so that it doesn't completely escape. There we go. Just wipe off the excess. So at this point, it'll stop. I don't have to keep turning him upside down. I'm just giving a chance for the alcohol to get absorbed into the wood. So alcohol will get absorbed into the wood a lot faster than if it was water-based. And this wood is dry enough that it will sponge up any kind of liquid. So even though it's dripping right now, it won't be for very long. The absorption ability of the wood fibers will be that it'll sop up any kind of available liquid stuff pretty quick. PDQ. There we go. So anyway, I think we're going to be happy with what we achieved here because I think you got a good sense of the strategy. You can agree with me or you can disagree. And the fact is you got the chat. It's mostly fine. I see the stuff, but the camera framing is too tight. I know. The thing is that this is the setup I have because it's just the way it is, but I'm only focused on, you can't see the whole thing at this moment, but later on when we're going to go into the waxing process, I'll have a different camera set up and then we can see the waxing. But right now I'm just having you focused on the damaged areas with what the camera can see. And because the camera is fixed, I have to hold up the statue, right side up or upside down for this work with what you have. Yeah. But we'll try and because you kind of, you get to improve, based on what you've done before. So this is number 2, but I think we achieved pretty well a couple of things. We're able to show what we're talking about with a pretty good reliability as to the camera can back up what I've been saying. And the thing is, you're in the room and you can actually give me an indication, oh yeah, I didn't see that properly enough, or can you show it a little better, or something like that. So, speak now or forever hold your peace. And then, based on, like I said, right now we're trying to control this administration of this liquidy stuff, and we're trying to make sure it doesn't leak out. And then I could come back in maybe 15 minutes or a half hour and then add more. But I don't necessarily need to do that on camera because what's important is just to explain to you the process so you can kind of assume that's what I'll be doing in a half hour. Like there's an open gap here that because the material is getting absorbed into the statue, give it another 20 minutes and it'll go even more absorbed. And then I can come back and fill in that little gap. And eventually it'll be filled up right up to the surface. And then the original wood that's on either side of the gap will be absolutely clean. And so what will be left is this spongy material that if it wants to shrink or to open up, it's going to have that resistance from that gel-like fill-in material I delivered with the syringe. Yes, we can revisit progress another time. Exactly. So it's better to do it in stages because there was stage 1 on YouTube that was 2 or 3 days ago, and now this is stage 2. And so just be happy with small victories. And then it's best to walk away and then come to the next step, and then the next step, and the next step. So that way See, this is 34 minutes. So the other one was about 30 minutes. And if you notice that original fill-in leg here, that was quite a lot of material I put in there. It's holding it quite well. It's not leaking out. And I'm very happy with how it's looking. And I know because I have my my sheath on my syringe that I can, you know, I can come back maybe even tomorrow and I'll be able to squeeze out this material out of the syringe, no problem. So the gap will be level with either side. Yes, when it gets totally filled and dried, it will be, and then there won't be any spillage. And if there is, I can clean it off because it will be so thin that it's just a formality, as it were. So then what'll happen is if it decides if the you know the it's still acclimatizing itself to its North American home. So if it decides it wants to shrink a little bit more, it probably won't open or get wider because of the fill-in that I put in, because it will be sealed off to air and humidity. And then when it gets waxed, it'll mean that there's a controlled amount of like humidity or a lack of humidity that'll happen with this wood, the whole piece of wood. So there'll be less of this accordion of shrinking and expanding and shrinking and expanding. Because all wood breathes like that. It shrinks and expands. Wood floors do that, and it goes with the seasons. There's always a little bit of you know, like an accordion type of thing that can be, you can measure it. So yeah, I can see in the head the crack is definitely settling in, and I think probably the best thing to do is just to leave the statue horizontal like this, and then maybe have something like holding up the head. So we're going to leave it like that. So there it is. So you know, you've been a big help, Trey, because your comments are nice and timely. Yes, and also it makes it look, when you slather beeswax and then you buff it off, it looks like you fed the wood. Like right now, it looks dry and you can't really see the grain. So the wax will have that protective layer of helping it like breathe, but not too quickly, you know, in one direction or another. And it will act like a lens. It will like give depth to the grain of the wood. It'll be like really, you can see like a lot deeper, and you'll get a better sense of what color this wood has and how this veining in the wood after it gets all slathered and cleaned off. But first we have to address the cracks and then the little chipped in areas, and then we're going to do the beeswaxing. That'll be the last step, and you will see a complete transformation, especially the base. You see it's very dry looking. It's possible, I think this whole statue was painted at one time and then it was stripped of the paint, and then that's how it was sold. Yes, we're gonna work with the natural wood, but I also have, I like a tinted or a beeswaxes. Like you can go with a natural beeswax, but if you go with a nice brown beeswax or even a dark brown, it will accent and it will exaggerate the wood, but it won't look fake. It'll just make it look like, it'll make it like as best as it can appear, you know, because some people are purists and they'll only want like a natural color of what it is. But I have a feeling that if I use like a tinted walnut wax, it's going to really zhuzh up the statue really nicely, where you'll have very dark and light colors and everything in between. So that's going to be my approach, and that'll be like the end stage. So we're already like in 40 minutes, so I think it's a good time to just be happy with what we've accomplished, and then hopefully you'll be invested enough to come back, and then we'll do phase 3 and phase 4. So I just want to thank you, Trey, for coming in, and whoever else was in the room. Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't Trey. It was Robin. I thought I was talking with Trey. And hold on a second. Has it been you all the time? Hold on a second. Because, I have a very small iPhone mini. Yeah, no, Trey was there. Okay. So then I didn't see when the switch happened. And when you came in the room, I thought I was talking to Trey the entire time. But obviously, I was talking to you. Well, well, yes. And I appreciate you asking me to alert you before I'm going live, because it's not that hard for me to do. And I prefer to actually have like one or two guests in the room to actually, help along with pertinent questions, so that whoever is new to this, who doesn't know what we're doing, gets, like a bit of an idea of what's going on. So it really helps. It helps like a viewer that comes in and watch the replay for sure. So he left a bit ago. I know. Well, it's really tiny, and my for some reason my iPad in the corner I wasn't able to get my YouTube live going, so I can't really use that for the text. But luckily, because I have the gloves on and I'm using your scrolling and stuff like that, and I'm trying to do like first I'm giving this my undivided attention, and then the chat has to take a back seat. But now that I'm done and I was about to do the outro, I took a chance. I mean, I'm revisiting the text, and then I realized I've been talking to you for most of the time, just so you're not talking to yourself. Well, it's not as interesting, but you try and do your best, because there are replay viewers that appreciate the effort, and if you do it well enough, like you were talking to somebody, which is not easy to do, but I've gotten enough practice. But I still prefer to have a real person I'm talking to than pretending I'm talking to a real person, because it just makes it that much easier on the one who's doing the broadcast, I've noticed. Anyway, so yeah, thank you for coming in, and of course we will be doing phase 3, and hopefully we can continue this on, and it will be then for the archives, and hopefully it'll be useful to somebody down the road. Okay. So nice hanging out with you, Robin. So we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now. Monkey God says bye till the next one too. Ciao.